There comes a point in life when you realize that the greatest enemy you will ever face lives in your own mind. It is not the world that defeats most people. It is their thoughts about it. The endless self-judgment, the comparisons, the doubts. They form a prison that no one else can see. You carry it quietly, and because it is invisible, it feels inescapable. Yet the Stoics knew that liberation begins not by changing the world, but by mastering the dialogue within it. The mind, once governed, becomes an ally more powerful than any external force. Toxic thoughts thrive in distraction and silence alike. They feed on unexamined patterns, growing stronger every time you believe their voice without challenge. You cannot negotiate with them, nor silence them through denial. You must out-discipline them. The Stoic path does not promise comfort. It promises control. It teaches that peace is not the absence of turbulence, but command within it. What you think repeatedly, you become. If your thoughts are undisciplined, so will your life be. But if your thoughts are clear, steady, and aligned with reason, no storm can reach you. This is not philosophy for scholars. It is warfare for the mind. Every moment you face the choice to feed weakness or strengthen will. The Stoic chooses strength through awareness, through restraint, through relentless practice. They forge a mind immune to chaos. The goal is not perfection, but purity, a mental state free from poison, where every thought serves the order of virtue. This is where clarity replaces confusion, and the disciplined person becomes untouchable. This is how you defeat toxic thoughts. Toxic thoughts are the silent architects of decay. They erode the structure of the mind quietly, leaving behind a landscape where potential collapses under the weight of self-inflicted illusion. Every person carries within them a field of thought that determines the quality of their life. When that field is left unguarded, it becomes overrun by invasive beliefs, resentments, fears, and judgments that distort perception. The Stoic understood that the mind is not a passive receiver of reality, but its sculptor. What one thinks, one becomes. Marcus Aurelius warned that the soul takes the color of its thoughts, and it is from this truth that all mental discipline begins. The modern person lives in an age of excess thought. Every screen, every conversation, every image invites a new comparison, a new self-judgment, a new anxiety. The average mind today is not calm, it is crowded. It cannot distinguish what belongs to it from what has been imposed upon it. This is the first layer of poison, the acceptance of noise as truth. The Stoic would call it the corruption of assent, allowing impressions to enter the mind without inspection. Epictetus taught that we must stand guard at the gate of our thoughts, questioning each one as it appears, asking, does this belong to me, or is it a lie dressed as insight? This single act of awareness separates the disciplined from the disordered. To defeat toxic thoughts, one must begin by observing them without reaction. Most people do not think, they are thought. They drift inside their own mental weather, believing every dark cloud predicts a storm. The Stoic does not fight the thought, they expose it. Observation itself is purification. By looking at the thought clearly, naming its emotion, its origin, its intended consequence, it loses the power to command. Marcus Aurelius wrote that if you are pained by any external thing, it is not the thing that disturbs you, but your judgment about it. The same applies to internal noise. A toxic thought only hurts when you agree with it. The act of agreement is the true battlefield. Every toxic thought seeks consent. It whispers, you are not enough, you have failed, you are behind, you have lost your chance. These are not truths. They are invitations to identify with weakness. The Stoic sees them as passing guests, unworthy of hospitality. When the mind refuses to host these guests, they pass through like shadows over still water. To master this requires training, to feel the pull of negativity and remain unmoved. This is not detachment born of apathy, it is composure born of understanding. Social media amplifies the mind's vulnerability to comparison. Endless images of success, beauty, and control create invisible hierarchies in which every viewer ranks themselves unconsciously. The Stoic response is to withdraw the judgment. Epictetus said that wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. The same applies to mental peace. It is not found in having positive thoughts, but in needing fewer of them. To defeat toxic thinking, one must starve the need for validation. The modern mind feeds on recognition, yet the Stoic mind feeds on alignment. Alignment with reason, with virtue, with what cannot be taken away. The first skill of the disciplined mind is selection. Every day the mind presents thousands of impressions. Most are irrelevant, many are harmful, few are useful. To live without selection is to drown in noise. The Stoic selects thoughts as a craftsman selects materials, with intention. They know that one poor material can weaken the entire structure. A single indulgence in envy, fear, or resentment can undo a week of discipline. Seneca wrote that to be angry is to let another's faults rob you of your peace. In the same way, to entertain a toxic thought is to allow an illusion to consume your strength. Toxic thoughts grow strongest in idle time. The untrained mind fears silence because silence reveals its chaos. Many fill this silence with constant input, music, scrolling, talking, believing that stimulation will quiet the unrest. The Stoic seeks the opposite. They enter silence deliberately to confront the noise directly. They do not escape into distraction. They enter the chamber of the mind as a commander enters the battlefield. Through reflection and journaling, they inspect their thoughts, separating what serves reason from what serves weakness. In this, they reclaim authorship of their mental state. Every thought has a consequence. Some sharpen perception, others dull it. Some strengthen will, others fracture it. The Stoic measures thoughts by their outcome, not their comfort. A thought that leads to calm action is good. One that leads to agitation is poison. This clarity transforms self-control into science. It removes the emotional drama from introspection. The disciplined person does not argue with their thoughts. They categorize them. This structure brings authority to the inner life. The mind becomes organized like a well-kept armory, each weapon clean, each tool in place, each unnecessary piece removed. To recognize a toxic thought, one must understand its signature. It carries urgency, judgment, and distortion. It thrives on emotional heat. It speaks in absolutes: always, never, everyone, no one. It attaches identity to temporary emotion. When a person says, "I am anxious, I am worthless, I am defeated," they have confused condition with essence. The Stoic separates the two. Feelings are events. They are weather systems that move through the mind. Identity is the sky itself, untouched by the passing storm. To remember this distinction is to remain unbroken amid turbulence. Modern anxiety often arises from a misplaced need for control. The mind attempts to dominate outcomes it cannot influence. Toxic thoughts flourish in this gap between desire and reality. The Stoic bridges this gap through acceptance of what is within one's command and dismissal of what is not. Epictetus structured this as the dichotomy of control. To the disciplined mind, this is not theory, it is survival. When the mind stops chasing what it cannot govern, the toxic charge of helplessness dissolves. Peace enters naturally when energy is withdrawn from the impossible. Discipline of thought begins with physical order. The body is the vessel of the mind, and a neglected vessel breeds confusion. A disciplined routine, exercise, rest, nutrition, clears the static of excess emotion. The Stoic does not divide mental and physical training. Both are instruments of reason. A tired body makes for a weak mind, and weakness invites toxic thought. When energy is stable, perception sharpens. A calm physiology becomes a stable platform for clear reasoning. Strength and serenity share the same root. Self-criticism is another toxin disguised as humility. Many believe that harsh inner dialogue creates improvement. In truth, it corrodes focus. The Stoic distinguishes between correction and condemnation. Correction is objective, a statement of fact followed by deliberate change. Condemnation is self-punishment, a repetitive mental ritual with no progress. Marcus Aurelius urged himself to accept correction easily, but to reject despair. To say, "I made an error," is discipline. To say, "I am a failure," is delusion. The first aligns with reality, the second chains the mind to illusion. The modern environment conditions people to measure worth through productivity. Every pause becomes guilt, every rest a sign of weakness. This belief breeds exhaustion and resentment. The Stoic replaces this metric with alignment to virtue. They ask, did I act with justice, courage, temperance, and wisdom? The answer to that determines worth, not the amount of output produced. A person who moves slowly in virtue stands higher than one who runs fast in error. This reversal frees the mind from comparison's grip. It transforms daily life into training for clarity rather than competition. Comparison remains one of the most destructive toxins. It poisons gratitude, distorts perception, and weakens self-respect. Every time the mind looks outward for validation, it abandons its post. Seneca reminded that the greatest obstacle to living is expectancy, dependence on what lies outside our power. When a person compares themselves to others, they surrender command of their peace to external illusions. The Stoic keeps their gaze inward, judging progress only against their former self. This orientation makes growth measurable, authentic, and invulnerable to external noise. To clean the mind, one must also clean language. The words one uses internally determine the emotional climate they live in. When speech becomes careless, thought becomes disordered. The Stoic cultivates verbal precision because clarity of language produces clarity of mind. A disciplined vocabulary leaves no room for exaggeration or self-pity. Phrases like "I always fail" or "nothing ever works" are linguistic toxins. They spread helplessness through repetition, replacing them with accurate statements. "This task is difficult," "this outcome is uncertain," restores the link between reason and reality. Awareness must evolve into intervention. Observation without correction becomes complacency. Once a thought is identified as toxic, the Stoic replaces it with deliberate focus. This is the principle of counteraction. For every indulgent idea, they impose discipline. For every judgment, they apply understanding. For every fear, they impose preparation. The mind learns through repetition that it can redirect itself at will. Each redirection builds confidence. Each success compounds authority. Over time, the mental terrain transforms from chaotic wilderness to cultivated ground. The practice of journaling, as Marcus Aurelius demonstrated, is a daily purge of mental residue. Writing clarifies what thinking alone distorts. It converts emotion into structure. When one records their thoughts without filter, they see patterns that hide in the flow of daily reaction. They learn which thoughts repeat, which emotions trigger certain responses, and which illusions persist. Through this reflection, toxic cycles are mapped and dismantled. The mind that observes itself cannot remain enslaved to its own shadows. Many toxic thoughts originate from fear of loss, rejection, failure, or death. Stoicism treats fear as ignorance of perspective. When one sees life as temporary, fear loses its anchor. The Stoic contemplates mortality not to breed despair, but to sharpen focus. Memento mori reminds the mind that time is limited, that energy should not be wasted on self-created suffering. When the mind aligns with mortality, trivial concerns lose gravity. The toxic voice that says this matters too much falls silent in the presence of eternity. To defeat toxic thoughts, one must live deliberately. Automatic living is fertile ground for mental decay. Each day should begin with intention. What principles will govern my actions? Each night should end with review. Where did I act beneath those principles? This daily rhythm creates self-respect, and self-respect immunizes against the need for toxic affirmation. The disciplined person no longer seeks external reassurance. Their validation is internal, drawn from integrity itself. The environment shapes thought. A chaotic space breeds chaotic thinking. Stoicism values simplicity, not as aesthetic minimalism, but as mental hygiene. Every unnecessary possession, every unresolved obligation, every half-kept promise consumes cognitive bandwidth. The Stoic organizes surroundings as an extension of mental order. They understand that the state of one's desk mirrors the state of one's mind. By simplifying environment, attention sharpens, and toxic thought loses its hiding places. Emotional regulation is the visible face of invisible thought mastery. The Stoic does not suppress emotion, they guide it. Emotions are data, not directives. Anger signals perceived injustice. Fear signals uncertainty. Sadness signals attachment. The wise mind interprets before it acts. Toxic thought converts emotion into identity. I am angry, I am afraid, and therefore becomes ruled by it. Stoic discipline restores separation between observer and reaction. Emotion becomes information, and the person becomes free to respond with clarity. Gratitude is the antidote to resentment, one of the most corrosive toxins. To resent is to live in imaginary debt, to believe that the world owes what it never promised. The Stoic reverses this by focusing on what is given. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Do not imagine that you will live 10,000 years. Death hangs over you. While you live, while it is in your power, be good." Gratitude converts attention from absence to presence. It realigns the mind with what exists rather than what is withheld. In gratitude, toxic thought cannot breathe. Another root of toxic thinking is attachment to outcome. The modern person equates success with validation and failure with worthlessness. The Stoic separates the two. Outcome is external. Intention is internal. To act with virtue is success. To act without it is failure, regardless of the result. This separation breaks the emotional dependency that feeds toxic cycles. When the mind judges itself by effort rather than applause, it becomes untouchable by disappointment. Isolation intensifies toxic thought when solitude is mistaken for abandonment. The Stoic treats solitude as laboratory, not exile. It is the ground where perception is purified. In silence, illusions collapse under their own noise. Those who fear being alone often fear their unexamined mind. When solitude is embraced as practice, it becomes a fortress. In it, the Stoic learns to generate peace without permission from the world. Modern technology exposes the mind to constant comparison of pace. Who succeeded earlier? Who achieved faster? The Stoic rejects this metric entirely. They understand that virtue has no deadline. Progress is measured in alignment, not acceleration. The race of self-improvement ends in stillness, where the only opponent is ignorance. When a person accepts their current stage with full effort, toxic impatience dissolves. The present becomes enough because it is the only field of action reason allows. Toxic thoughts often disguise themselves as logic. They speak with reason's tone but carry emotion's agenda. They rationalize avoidance, justify vice, excuse inconsistency. The Stoic mind tests each thought through evidence. Is this aligned with virtue or with comfort? This inquiry cuts through deception. True reason strengthens, false reason sedates. Every mind must learn this distinction or remain enslaved to clever excuses masquerading as wisdom. Self-image is another theater of distortion. Modern culture sells identity as performance. The person who attaches worth to image lives at the mercy of opinion. The Stoic sees image as irrelevant to virtue. They care for reputation only to the extent it serves justice and wisdom. They know that the noise of approval or condemnation is outside command. The disciplined mind acts in accordance with principle, regardless of the crowd's reaction. In this, they find true independence, freedom from psychological slavery. Forgiveness cleanses the mind from the toxins of memory. Holding resentment is the mental equivalent of drinking poison to harm another. The Stoic forgives not to excuse, but to release. They view wrongdoing as ignorance, a lack of wisdom in action. Seneca wrote that no one errs on purpose. Understanding this transforms offense into education. When resentment is released, attention returns to the present. Energy once bound to bitterness is freed for creation. Awareness of thought origin is crucial. Many toxic ideas are inherited from family, culture, or habit and carried unconsciously for decades. The Stoic performs mental archaeology, uncovering the foundations of their own beliefs. Each inherited assumption is examined. Does it serve reason or comfort? Those that serve comfort are discarded. Those that serve reason are refined. This process dismantles generational illusions, replacing them with deliberate conviction. The mind becomes authored, not inherited. Resilience grows when the mind learns to interpret difficulty as training. Every challenge exposes hidden weakness. Every obstacle refines perception. Toxic thought interprets struggle as failure. Stoic thought interprets it as forge. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. To live by this principle transforms adversity into advantage. The disciplined person seeks friction, knowing that resistance sharpens will. Control of attention is the ultimate skill in mental sovereignty. The world competes for the mind's gaze, but the Stoic directs it inward. Attention is the currency of existence. Where it is spent determines the shape of life. Toxic thought steals attention through rumination and fantasy. Stoic attention invests in presence, in what is being done now, fully and correctly. This focus converts simple actions into expressions of virtue. Washing a dish, answering a message, taking a breath, all become training in command. Discipline must be visible in routine. The mind that seeks freedom from chaos must act in orderly ways. Waking early, tending to duties, keeping promises. These are not small acts, they are evidence of inner command. Each fulfilled task reinforces belief in self-governance. Toxic thought weakens when behavior contradicts it. A person cannot think themselves weak while acting with strength. Habit reshapes identity quietly until confidence becomes natural. The Stoic also trains perception through the practice of reframing. Every event is neutral until judged. When something unpleasant occurs, the undisciplined mind reacts. The Stoic evaluates. They ask, what opportunity for virtue lies within this? This question dissolves victimhood instantly. By finding utility in adversity, the mind transforms poison into fuel. This alchemy of perception is the highest form of strength, to convert suffering into wisdom by choice. In the end, the defeat of toxic thoughts is not achieved by force, but by governance. The mind becomes loyal to reason through consistent command. Doubt may visit, fear may whisper, resentment may knock, but none are granted residence. The Stoic mind stands as a fortress of discernment, its gates open only to what strengthens. Everything else passes by, powerless. This is the state of sovereignty, when thought serves virtue and the person serves reason. The world remains chaotic, but the mind remains clear. The battle is never-ending, yet the victory is constant, renewed with every chosen thought. Inner dialogue is the unseen architect of every emotional state. It is the voice that never leaves, shaping perception through its tone and vocabulary. Most people allow this voice to wander untrained, repeating old fears and self-judgments without question. The Stoic mind treats inner dialogue as a discipline, a language to be mastered. When the inner voice speaks with disorder, the external world appears hostile. When it speaks with order, the same world becomes navigable. The training begins by converting thought from monologue to dialogue, from reaction to examination. Every thought must be addressed as though it were a visitor at the gate. The Stoic greets each with inquiry. Who sent you? What do you seek? What consequence will follow if I allow you entry? This form of questioning breaks identification with passing emotion. It re-establishes authority over mental speech. The untrained mind believes every inner statement is truth. The trained mind knows most are echoes of unexamined experience. Through interrogation, language becomes filtration. Only the speech aligned with reason remains, and the rest dissolves. Self-command is established through linguistic precision. The disciplined mind avoids exaggeration and emotional absolutism. It speaks internally in measured terms, never allowing passion to dictate phrasing. When the inner dialogue uses balanced language, emotional storms lose their violence. Anger weakens when described accurately. Fear shrinks when named without drama. Marcus Aurelius practiced this by defining each disturbance in plain terms. When faced with pleasure, call it a sensation. When faced with pain, call it a perception. Language purifies emotion through accuracy. The Stoic also eliminates the tyranny of internal accusation. Many live under the rule of a hostile narrator, a voice that condemns every error, magnifies every flaw, and narrates every shortcoming as identity. To break this tyranny, one must separate self from description. The Stoic replaces self-attack with observation. They say, I acted beneath reason, not I am worthless. This simple shift preserves dignity while enabling correction. Self-mastery cannot grow in soil poisoned by contempt. Perception control begins with this same linguistic reform. The words used to describe the world determine the emotional posture toward it. When one calls an inconvenience a disaster, the nervous system obeys. When one calls it an adjustment, strength returns. The Stoic trains perception to name things by their essence, not by their impression. Seneca wrote that we suffer more in imagination than in reality. Most suffering is linguistic inflation, the mind assigning catastrophic language to neutral events. The cure is accuracy, delivered consistently. Inner dialogue must also serve preparation. The Stoic uses thought rehearsal not for fantasy, but for fortitude. They imagine difficulty in advance, speaking to themselves as commander to soldier. If this occurs, you will act thus. If insulted, you will remain composed. If deprived, you will adapt. This internal speech programs calm under pressure. When the event arrives, it feels familiar, already conquered in rehearsal. The mind obeys the patterns it practices, and practice in composure creates composure in reality. Silence completes the cycle of command. A trained inner voice knows when to speak and when to be still. Constant inner commentary exhausts clarity. The Stoic learns to rest the mind in quiet observation, to see without labeling, to feel without narrating. In this silence, perception returns to purity. The world appears as it is, not as described. This quiet is not emptiness but alignment, a state in which thought exists only when necessary, and the unnecessary dissolves on its own. When the inner dialogue serves reason, the person becomes unassailable. Praise or blame cannot disturb them, for their interpreter speaks in truth alone. Fortune may shift, but the voice within remains constant, translating change into instruction. This is the final aim of Stoic perception control, to live under the governance of one's own clarity. The mind ceases to echo the world and begins to direct it. Emotion is neither enemy nor ally. It is raw material. The Stoic does not seek to extinguish it, but to refine it. Every surge of anger, fear, or desire carries energy, neutral until directed. When left ungoverned, that energy breeds impulse and confusion. When disciplined, it becomes fuel for reasoned action. The transformation of emotion into disciplined energy begins with recognition that feeling itself is not the problem. The unexamined reaction to it is, Marcus Aurelius wrote, that the mind adapts and converts every obstacle into fuel for its own purpose. This applies not only to external events but to internal turbulence. Anger can be transmuted into resolve, fear into vigilance, desire into commitment. The Stoic intercepts emotion at its rise before language corrupts it into narrative. They feel the force, pause, and ask, how can this energy serve reason? This pause is power, the moment where instinct is refined into will. Anger becomes discipline when guided by principle. It loses its destructive nature when stripped of personal offense. The Stoic does not rage, they correct the emotional fire that once sought revenge becomes precision in response. Fear, when examined, becomes foresight. It alerts the mind to prepare rather than panic. The Stoic does not deny fear, they interpret it. Desire, too, is refined. What the untrained person craves for comfort, the disciplined person converts into drive for mastery. Emotion remains, but its direction changes. This transformation requires an inner alchemy: perception, reflection, and redirection. Perception identifies the emotional spark, reflection clarifies its nature, and redirection channels it into purposeful motion. Each phase shortens with practice until the process becomes instinctive. The Stoic no longer fights emotion, but commands it. The once chaotic impulses now obey the architecture of virtue. Energy that once escaped through reaction is now contained within discipline, ready to be used deliberately. Seneca described anger as a temporary madness, a possession of the mind. The cure is delay, the interval between emotion and action. In that delay, energy cools into control. The disciplined person does not explode. They calculate the same strength that could destroy becomes the force that endures. This principle applies to all passions. The power of restraint is not suppression, it is conservation. To withhold immediate reaction is to store power for meaningful expression. Emotions are data streams from the body to the intellect. They signal imbalance, opportunity, or threat. The Stoic receives these signals without distortion. They do not drown in them, they translate them. By doing so, they unify body and mind into a single disciplined system. Emotion becomes a compass, not a chain. It points toward what requires attention. Reason then decides the course. The harmony between sensation and thought defines the Stoic equilibrium. Calm intensity, neither detached nor consumed. Energy transmuted through reason creates presence. When emotion is mastered, the person moves without hesitation. Their calmness carries weight because it is charged with controlled intensity. Others feel it but cannot explain it. It is the still fire of command, an energy so refined it no longer burns, only illuminates. This is what the ancients meant by serenity, not numbness, but full engagement under total control. The Stoic trains for this transformation daily through minor trials, delays, discomforts, provocations. Each is an opportunity to convert irritation into strength. Every time the mind resists impulse, it reinforces the pathway of mastery. Emotion ceases to be an enemy to conquer and becomes an instrument to play. The person who commands their emotions does not avoid life, they direct it. Through this command, energy and virtue become indistinguishable. Endurance is the proof of mastery. It is the point where philosophy leaves theory and enters the bloodstream. The Stoic does not define strength by aggression or victory, but by the capacity to remain composed when the structure of life trembles. In chaos, the average person reacts, the disciplined person anchors. The storm reveals what discipline has built. When noise surrounds them, the Stoic returns to principle, to the internal law that no external event can alter. In this return lies the power to remain unmoved. The foundation of endurance is perception. What most call crisis, the Stoic interprets as exercise. Adversity is the training ground of character, not its enemy. Marcus Aurelius wrote that life is opinion, and everything depends on how we view what confronts us. When pressure mounts, the Stoic mind translates pain into data. Each discomfort is information about the limits of endurance, an opportunity to expand them. The same heat that melts wax hardens steel. Endurance is choosing to be the latter. To remain calm under pressure, one must separate event from interpretation. The world delivers circumstance, but the mind assigns meaning. The undisciplined confuse the two and suffer twice, once from the event and again from their story about it. The Stoic endures by simplifying. They remove judgment, leaving only fact. This reduction strips chaos of its emotional gravity. Facts cannot wound, only attachment can. By focusing on what can be done, not what is felt, endurance becomes rational rather than emotional. Endurance also demands conservation. Energy wasted on complaint weakens resolve. The Stoic refuses to narrate their suffering because speech multiplies pain. They endure silently, converting energy that would fuel despair into deliberate action. Seneca wrote that difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body. The disciplined person treats hardship as repetition in training. Painful, necessary, transformative. Each trial endured without collapse deepens inner stillness. The body may strain, but the mind remains untouched. The untrained seek comfort as refuge. The Stoic seeks discomfort as teacher. Pressure exposes false values. When life contracts under difficulty, only what is essential survives. The Stoic learns to let the unnecessary die without mourning. This detachment is not coldness, it is precision. It preserves strength for what matters. In chaos, the disciplined person operates with clarity, because they have already discarded what distraction demanded simplicity becomes armor. Endurance matures into presence. The person who remains steady in turmoil becomes a fixed point in the shifting world. Others sense stability in their stillness. It is not the absence of emotion, but the mastery of it, a mind so ordered that disturbance cannot enter. This presence commands without speech. It radiates authority, the kind that cannot be borrowed or faked. It is earned through silent trials that no one witnesses, through countless moments of choosing composure over collapse. The Stoic also understands that endurance without meaning becomes mere survival. Purpose transforms endurance into virtue. When the mind holds a clear why, pressure loses its weight. Endurance becomes service to principle, not self-punishment. The disciplined person does not endure for applause or pride, but because their actions must align with what they know to be right. This internal necessity produces serenity under strain. Duty, when embraced fully, neutralizes chaos. To remain unmoved is not to be emotionless, it is to possess hierarchy of control. The Stoic feels deeply but acts selectively. They allow no feeling to dictate beyond reason's permission. Their calm is not suppression, but structure, a fortress built from practiced restraint. In the heart of turbulence, they stand as the still axis around which events revolve. The world may break around them, but within, order holds endurance. In its purest form is peace expressed through strength. Mastery of thought is mastery of life. Every action, emotion, and decision originates in the invisible terrain of the mind. The Stoic, who has purified this inner world, stands as one who no longer lives in reaction, but in deliberate command. The noise of the world may rise, but it no longer dictates the rhythm within. Through discipline, every thought has been examined. Through endurance, every illusion stripped away. What remains is not emptiness, but clarity, a state where reason directs energy and virtue becomes instinct. The defeat of toxic thought is not the creation of endless positivity. It is the restoration of order. The mind, once filled with judgment and comparison, now operates like a silent instrument tuned to truth. Emotion flows through it without distortion. Language follows reason, and perception reflects reality without embellishment. This is the Stoic's final victory, not to escape thought, but to govern it so completely that chaos can find no foothold. To live in such alignment is to experience freedom unconditioned by circumstance. The person who has trained their inner dialogue speaks to themselves as a philosopher would to a student, firm, kind, and exact. Their words no longer wound, they guide. Their emotions no longer dictate, they serve. Their fears no longer paralyze, they instruct. This union between intellect and feeling produces unbreakable composure. The Stoic becomes their own mentor, their own guardian, their own sovereign. Every internal command is issued from wisdom, and every response obeys it without resistance. Endurance under pressure matures into serenity. The ability to remain unmoved by chaos transforms from effort into nature. The person no longer resists the world. They flow through it with directed calm. Adversity ceases to be an interruption and becomes the rhythm of progress. Each challenge refines perspective. Each trial deepens certainty. The world tests them constantly, but no longer finds weakness. They have become like the rock Marcus Aurelius described, against which the waves crash, and still it stands. The transformation is complete when discipline is no longer practiced but embodied. What began as conscious correction becomes reflexive integrity. The Stoic no longer decides to be calm, they are calm. They no longer choose to endure. Endurance has become their posture. They do not need reminders of virtue. Their thoughts move along its path naturally. This permanence marks the true defeat of inner toxicity, not temporary relief, but irreversible reformation. In this state, stillness is not passivity, but presence. The person moves with deliberate weight, aware of the subtle power that comes from composure. Their influence extends without effort because it is grounded in authenticity. They have ceased trying to control life and begun aligning with it. Each thought, each breath, Each act is governed by the same principle. What serves reason remains. What disturbs it dissolves. Such a life cannot be shaken because it no longer depends on what can be taken. The modern world rewards reaction, yet the Stoic stands as a reminder of another way. They show that clarity is possible amidst noise and peace attainable amidst turbulence. Their calm presence contradicts the chaos around them, revealing that mastery is not about domination, but understanding. The one who has conquered their own thoughts cannot be conquered by circumstance. This is not escape from life, but full participation within it, unshaken, unhurried, undivided. To live as a Stoic in a restless age is to practice rebellion through composure. It is to rise each day with mind unclouded, to meet uncertainty with steadiness, to let the external world spin while the internal world remains still. Every toxic impulse is neutralized by awareness, every doubt dismantled by discipline. The person no longer seeks to be free of difficulty, only free within it. And in this freedom, they discover what all philosophy points toward, that peace is not found elsewhere. It is built, one thought at a time, within.